Hi guys, there are quite a few books out there from CarTech on LS engines and LS engine swaps. I've written numerous articles on the subject. In fact, it was almost everything, all I covered for quite a while. But I thought it was high time that we kind of broke it down for all you pro touring guys. So let's start with just a basic overview on LS engines. The first most essential thing you need to know is that there are two generations. There's a Gen 3 small block Chevy and there's a Gen 4 small block Chevy, and those are both LS platforms. And depending on which you choose, that's going to determine the ECU or the wiring harness you run. It may determine a few other things like your throttle body or accelerator pedal. So that's very important to know. There are also 6 different displacements: 4.8, 5.3, 5.7, 6 liter, 6.2, and 7 liter. All came from the factory. Starting with the infamous 4.8 and 5.3, they look identical from the outside and they share the same iron block. If you look on there on the casting, it says 4.8 liter / 5.3 liter. But they have a different crankshaft stroke depending on whether it's a 4.8 or a 5.3. Same bore, different crankshaft stroke. Now, all the variations between the 4.8 and the 5.3 are very similar. Some have better heads. The Gen 4s have better rods. That's fairly well documented on some of the Facebook groups and forums out there. There's also an aluminum block 5.3. If you're so inclined. The 5.7 liter was aluminum block only, Gen 3 only. That's what came in the F-body and the Corvette. They had cathedral port heads just like the 4.8 and the 5.3. Now the 6 liter, that's where things get a little bit interesting. So the 6 liter started in Gen 3, but there's also Gen 4 6 liters. You could get an iron or aluminum block, again, depending on the generation. It started with the iron block 6 liter, and then in Gen 3, and then in Gen 4, that's when the LS2 came out, and then some of the other truck variations. They use this thing like pretty widely. The 6 liter came in a 2500 HD truck. It came in hybrid truck applications. It came in flex fuel. Some of them had variable cam timing. Others had fixed cam timing. Some had displacement on demand. Others didn't. And some had, a lot of them had cathedral port heads, but some actually had rectangular port heads. Like if you had, for example, if you had one out of a G8, that would have rec port heads. So a lot of variation in the 6 liters depending on which one you get. The 6.2 liter, and again, back to what I was saying before about the 4.8 and the 5.3, on the block it's cast in there 6.0L, just like the same with the 5.7 liter. The displacements are cast right into the side of the block. So if you're trying to figure out what you got, that's a good way to figure it out. Very easy. You don't have to look up casting numbers. That'll tell you. Now into the 6.2 liter, Gen 4 only. They're all aluminum blocks and they are all rectangular port heads. Included in this is the LSA, which is a supercharged engine that came in the CTS-V, as well as the Camaro ZL1, and then the LS9, which came in the ZR1 Corvette. Probably not going to find either of those two in a junkyard, but good to know. Anyways, so and last but not least, we have the 7 liter LS7. Again, probably not going to find that in a junkyard. 7 liter LS7, all aluminum. It has unique rec port heads that are based on the C5R. It's got titanium rods. It's got titanium intake valves. It's a really nice piece. And then outside of these OEM engines, Chevrolet Performance actually does offer a couple other crate engines outside of those. That includes the LSX 376, which is a 6.2 liter, and then they have the LSX 454. Both of those are using the LSX bow tie iron block. Very nice block, 6 bolts per cylinder, great for boost, and obviously you can do large displacements with them as they offer with the LSX 454. As I mentioned, guys, I've been doing this for quite a while, covering LS engines for over 15 years at this point, and I wanted to go through just a few of my favorite combinations that I think will work really well for pro touring. So number one, LSA. I had an LSA engine, crate engine, that I actually put in my Trailblazer SS daily driver. It was essentially bolt-ons with a cam upgrade. That's it, nothing crazy. It made 822 horsepower, 824 horsepower and 783 pounds per feet of torque on the engine dyno. Not bad for basically a bolt-on motor with a cam. Now, let's go through what it had. It had a Weapon X ported snout and ported blower. It had upper and lower pulleys. I think it was making around 14 PSI. It had a ported LS3 throttle body. The factory throttle body is actually a little bit smaller than the 90 millimeter LS3, so we used the LS3 and Weapon X ported it. We put a 160 degree thermostat in there. We did a comp cam, valve springs, and push rods. And then we did a set of headers, obviously on the dyno, but in the truck it had long tube headers as well from Cook's. We did some injectors from Deechworks. When we installed this in the Trailblazer SS, I actually converted to E85. We did a flex fuel setup, and that was worth over 30 horsepower. This isn't, these positive displacement supercharged engines, they really like E85. I want to say I made over 20 horsepower with a stock LS2 going to flex fuel, and then with the blower on it, it was over 30 horsepower. So these engines love E85. If you can just if you can get a big enough injector and big enough fuel pumps in there to handle it, I highly recommend that. Even in a 4,500 pound plus SUV, this combo ripped. The amount of low end and mid range grunt that this thing, you could feel it in your soul. I had a couple of passengers that were definitely looking a little queasy after a ride or two in the truck. So I'm going to put the link to that final story that I did that we did on it before it went into the truck, obviously, as it's more relevant to you. But yeah, Chevrolet Performance LSA crate engine with just some bolt-ons and a comp cam. Definitely the way to go. Next on the list, LS7. We're going to talk about the LS7 that I covered. We put into March Performance's 57 convertible. That was at SEMA if you didn't see it a couple years ago. Now, basically, this was a stock engine that comes with a warranty and 505 horsepower. Really nice piece. And if you've never driven anything with an LS7 in it, this thing makes power everywhere. With that much displacement, it's pretty much, as soon as you hit the throttle, it's an animal. It wants to take off, and then it pulls all the way to the top. So it screams to 7,000 RPM. So really, really nice piece. Probably the only downside to an LS7 is that they come with a dry sump. Well, they did until recently. When we did this story, which I'll share the link with you, we converted the dry sump to a wet sump. Skagandiki had a really nice kit and made it really easy to do it. But now you can buy one straight from Chevrolet Performance, and guess what? It makes even more power. Now it makes 570 horsepower and 540 pounds per feet of torque. So they did a few tweaks to it. They know you're not going to put it in a stock, in a stock replacement situation, for the most part. This thing is designed for guys like us that want to do pro touring and with a wet sump, so they don't want to have to deal with the big tank and all the lines and everything. So it's a really nice setup. forged internals, titanium rods. You don't even need to do any work now. You can just bolt that thing right in and get 570 horsepower. Third and final one, the LT4 that I put in my GTO. Again, I'll put the link down below if you guys have seen my videos on the GTO powertrain. This thing makes 720 horsepower and 750 pounds-per-feet of torque with a pulley swap and some tuning, and that's it. That is it. You know, the little blower, the little 1700 blower, it's kind of maxed out. But you know, you do some porting to that thing or swap the blower out, you can make, you know, gobs more power. But it's really a nice setup. 720 horsepower. That's honestly is plenty for pro touring. I'm probably going to put E85 on it and add, you know, more power to it. You know, really very simple upgrades, and you can, you know, it's got some headroom to it. It's got forged internals. You know, it makes great torque off idle with a 10-to-1 compression. It really is a nice, great engine to start. And like I said, I'm going with the most basic setup with just a pulley, and I'm already at 720. And I've got no weird idling issues to worry about since it's a stock engine. You know, it really is a nice setup. And just like I mentioned with the LSA combo, these positive displacement engines, you know, when you're in an autocross and, you know, you don't want something that's necessarily real peaky. You want something that's going to make some great torque down low. That's what these engines are really great for, and why I'm a big fan of them for pro touring. And, you know, the proof is in the pudding. Look at Stilo. He's doing an LT5. He's done an LT4. He's done an LS9. I mean, there's something to this. I'm just saying. So I just want to give you guys some parting words of wisdom in terms of planning your engine. Make sure you prioritize your goals and plan accordingly. If you got your heart set on a turbo 5.3 or 6-liter, I get it. It's just cool. Check out Richard Holdner. He's got plenty of videos on that. You know, if you've got any specific questions, LS questions, drop in the comments below. I'd be happy to do another video or just respond to your questions. I've written several books on LS engines. I've spent 9 years immersed in it at GM High Tech. I'd love to help you with your project. There really are great engines. There's a little bit to know, you know, there are a few little things here and there that maybe I could help you with. If not, thanks for watching. See you later.